Hello and welcome back to hData TV. My name is Jared Beschelt, and today we're going to take a look at the hData reference implementation that we created in Java. You can find it on the hData website, which is at projecthdata.org. On that site, we have a couple of overall announcements and other information. One of the important sections here is the document section. In that document section, you'll find the specifications as we have submitted them to HL7 for standardization. The record format specification describes the overall structure of hData, but more important for our discussion today is the Java or the hData RESTful API specification. If you go on that document, you'll find an introduction and some general information. And in section 2, you'll find the description of the RESTful API itself. It's out of the scope of this tutorial today to discuss all the details of that document, but it is highly recommended that anyone who is going to use the Java RESTful API that we created for hData is going to take a look at the document and familiarize themselves with the various operations that we defined. Also on that website, we have links to our code repositories. We're hosting the code on the github.com website, and from this overview page, we have a link to each of the individual projects that we have there. For the Java project that we're going to build today, you're going to need Java SE6 and a Java-compliant or a servlet-compliant Java container. That would include Glassfish v3, which we have been using to test it. We wrote the reference implementation with Netbeans 6.9. You don't have to use Netbeans, but it'll make the build process a lot easier. You will have to use Git to get the code from the website itself. And the project uses Apache Maven as a build environment to actually build the code in the projects. That's useful since it also pulls in all the various dependencies. But if you don't want to use Apache Maven, you can get those dependencies yourself. Those include Jersey 1.3, which is the reference implementation for JAX-RS, including the Abdera extensions and the Abdera libraries for creating the Atom feeds. All right, so let's take a look at the 3 projects that we're actually going to need for building out the Java reference implementation on your system. The first one is the hData XML Schemas, which you can find here in this project. The schemas contain the core schemas from the specification, the root document schema, and the section metadata schema. It contains also an hData content profile for continuity of care, but we're not going to use that in the reference implementation today. The other 2 projects you're going to need contain the Java code. The first one is the Java HStore, and that one contains the HDR provider, service provider interface that is loaded through the Java SE6 service loader. I'll be talking a little bit later about more details on the architecture to describe how that works. The third project you're actually going to need is the HStore sample, which takes the libraries created from the Java HStore project and uses that in a servlet container. Now let's take a quick look at how this looks in Netbeans. The hData schema has a Maven file called pom.xml, which contains all the necessary information that loads the various dependencies. It also contains a settings file, and that settings file it can be used to actually configure your proxy. So you have to go in here and set your proxy to whatever it is. If you're not using a proxy, that's fine. Just leave this entire proxy section empty. All right, so let's take a look right now at Netbeans on how we can actually build the reference implementation and deploy it in our local container. I have here on the screen the 3 projects open at this point. The first 2 I already built. The third one I'm going to build right now. Using Netbeans and the Maven build system is really extremely easy. It's a context menu. You just click build and it builds itself. We then have to run that particular project. So we're going to do this right now. Again, the build system is going to deploy that to the local servlet container and then go from here. Once the project is running, we actually get to this landing page where we can take a look at the root document itself, which conforms to the href specification. It has all the necessary extensions and the sections in here. We also can take a look at the Atom feed of the sections contained in the root section of that particular record. So let's take a closer look at this allergy section right now. And you see that my browser is actually applying a style sheet, so I cannot see the source code itself for that particular Atom feed. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to take a look at this page source here, essentially copy it over and put it into my Netbeans environment, and actually have it here right now. So we have here the Atom feed itself. We have for each individual document contained in that particular section an entry element, an Atom entry, including some of the Atom specific metadata that every Atom entry has, including updated and IDs and titles, etc., etc. But the content node of the Atom entry feed also contains the document metadata, which conforms to the specifications that the href specification as we have on the website. So now I'm going to go back to my browser and actually going to take a look at the document itself. This is a very simple document. It's just plain text. As we have said before, hData records can contain any kind of media type. So plain text is just as good as XML. So now I'm going to use poster to add a new document to this particular section. I'm going to go in here, specify the media type, and going to add a XML document, a very simple one. And add that to the Atom feed. I have to now post it to the allergy section itself. So I'm going to copy the URL for that allergy section here. Give it to this URL up here, and then post it. Poster gets me back that it was created, so I close this document right now. And I'm going to reload my section here. Here's my new document. If I go in here, it actually shows up as an XML document, just the one that I had here, including the typo. Now, if I want to delete it, because I had a typo, I'm going to actually go back to this section itself, copy the URL, and again, use poster against this URL, and just send the delete. The reference implementation deletes it, gets me back the appropriate status code, and if I go back here and try to reload it, the document 2 will not be found, and if I go here, it is actually gone. The same thing we can also do with the allergy section itself. So if you go to the allergy section here, copy it over, and then go back to poster and delete the allergy section, then the entire allergy section is actually removed from this record. In the Netbeans environment, it looks like this. We have here the Java HStore project, and within the project, we have the HDR provider interface itself. The HDR provider interface itself just consists of a single method outlined here. And what we do with this, in order to register it with the Java Service Loader, we create a meta-inf.services section. And within that meta-inf services section, we have a file named exactly as the class name of the HDR provider interface. If I open this file, I find for the Java HStore project just a simple dummy provider interface that allows us to run some tests. For the Java HStore project, we have another provider in the meta-inf services section, which is actually our, let's open this, which is actually our sample provider, and that is an in-memory provider. So nothing gets written to the disk, but instead all the transactions that you saw before in the demo were actually just executed in memory. If we take a look at that provider itself, that implementation itself, it's very simple. It has here that interface method, and it implements that here in memory. All right, the final part now is how the HTTP request gets handled by the reference implementation. I'm just going to touch this briefly here in this demo because it is not relevant to actually using the Java implementation. But inside the Java HStore project, we have a set of classes under resources that deal with those client requests. The most important of one is the record resource, which is annotated with the path annotation from JAX-RS. And that record resource actually handles all the necessary details, including calling other resources, such as the section resource or the document resource. As I said before, the developer does not have to implement any of that or change any of that. This is simply as a instruction to them how the implementation works in and by itself. This concludes our brief overview of the Java HData reference implementation. More information can be gained from the website and from the GitHub project repositories. But you can also send your questions to the HData General Google Group mailing list. Thank you very much for watching.